Welcome to Eviliv, a live media commentary show that answers the question, will there be a third Rebel Moon film? Subscribe if you're new to the channel because today we are reviewing Rebel Moon Part 2, Curse of Forgiveness. This is the Rebel Moon Part 2 Director's Cut. All right, let's talk about this for a second. Directed by Zack Snyder, screenplay by Zack Snyder, Kurt Johnstad, and Shay Hatton. Music by Tom Holkenborg. The logline is pretty much the same as the original. Ostensibly, Cora believes that she killed, what is his name? Atticus Noble at the end of the first film. She's 100% convinced he's dead because he should be, by all rights, this dude should be dead. And so she returns with all the heroes that she collected in the first film to go tell the villagers of this planet, moon of Volg, I think it's called. I don't know. We'll call it Volg right now, and if I see it quickly anywhere else, Velt, that's what it is. The planet moon of Velt, because it is like an actual moon that they're on. It's like surrounding this massive gas giant, I think, and that's why it looks all crazy and weird. So she returns there, and they're all, talking like, okay, now you got these. Do you really think that we are going to survive this thing? Like, the Imperium's going to come down on us like a hammer. Like, we're screwed. There's no way that we're going to be able to get the grain done in time because as they're coming back down and Cora is telling them, hey, chill out. Don't worry about it. I killed the motherfucker. So, not a big deal. But I did it for you. As they're congratulating her and they're sort of like in shock. Is that real? The soldier that stayed behind is on the radio. And they have this like real kind of weird radio setup where it's like this crystal in a jar, or it actually looks like a Star Wars holocron in a jar that then reflects the image of the individual standing in front of it to whomever's on the other side of the radio frequency. It's kind of cool, actually. But anyway, he's talking with the commander that's the operating commander as Noble is sort of out of commission. And he's like, hey, so what's the deal? And he's like, yeah, everything's fine. We've got the harvest working and, everyone's great. And he's like, well, how come I don't ever see any of the other soldiers? He's like, oh, they're busy, subduing the population like you want them to, because they genuinely don't know that all the other guys are killed. And so the only remaining soldier who is clearly on the side of the good side at this point, if there's a good side, is basically just placating them. He's like, look, I'll get these wretches in line. Don't worry about it. When do you need the grain? He's like, we're going to be there in 5 days. He's like, you know what? We'll get the harvest in 5 days. No problem. And if we don't, we'll just kill everyone. Who cares? The dude's like, okay. All right. And then we flash back to Atticus, who is in this petri dish of god robot goo. I'm hoping it's not like, man jam, but it's like a female robot, so who knows? Anyway, he's in this weird petri dish with all these like little like tubes sticking into him, and he like projects himself, or he's projected into this sort of ether realm where the acting emperor or acting king is just sort of waiting. This guy's name is oh gosh, I know what it is. King Levitica? No. Where is he? All right, well, I'm terrible with names, so I apologize. Anyway, the dude that, the worst freaking review ever. The guy who saved Cora when she was a kid, who's like running the Imperium. Belisarius. I'm such an idiot. So Belisarius is sitting there and he's like, they're standing on this ice sheet, and underneath it are a bunch of like gigantic fish, like sort of swimming around. And he has, like freaking Atticus Noble has. They have this like long bone with like a joint on the end of it that they end up like smashing people with. Well, anyway, he has one of those and he's like pounding it into the ground, which is creating these fractures in the ice as if Atticus is going to fall through the ice or something. And he's like, why should I even help you? You haven't been successful. He's like, I know where Arthelius is, which is the daughter that Belisarius sort of adopted from a world he was squashing, and then used her to overthrow the king and queen, and presumably the queen, the princess. And so he's like, look, if you can deliver her, all right, but I really don't think you're doing a good job. And then he like hits it, and dude splashes into the water, and then he wakes up, and he's like surrounded by all those red creepy priests with their ridiculous hats and masks, and they're all like trying to revive him, but it's taking too long because the mother robot entity that sort of powers these ships is what they're using to heal him, and it just did a massive space jump, and so it doesn't really have the energy. So they're furiously pumping coal into it to try to get the energy back up so that it can heal Atticus Noble. It never really explains the technology in this, but they go from like this mystical robot, sort of like demigod entity to like steam-powered engines. Like, there's no like, not even like alien level of technology, where it's just like this 1970s readout or anything. It's literally like World War II. Like they have this main cannon, this dual cannon on this mothership that they're flying, and they have to use like wenches. They like roll one side to go vertically, and they roll another side to go horizontally. It's the most primitive, ridiculous. The technology in this makes no sense. You can travel through space and time, but you have to use hand levers to aim? Like, that doesn't make any sense at all. Have some consistency in your technology, or at least some sort of reason that you communicate to us, the audience, so that we understand why it is the way that it is. Like, the strength of Star Wars, I'm talking about the original Star Wars here, is that it was used. Like everything in that universe looked like it was beaten to hell and used and old, but all the technology matched and fit together. In this, the technology is all over the place, and you have no idea, and it's used by the same culture, the same Imperium culture. So you have no idea what the hell was the evolution of technology. It's just so lost on everyone that's watching it. It really brings the film down. As a quick aside, I gave this film, the original version of this, not the director's cut, but the original part 2, Scargiver. When it first came out, the PG-13 version, I gave it, I think, like a 1 or a 2 rating. I was so pissed off by the fact that they had like smoke coming out of spaceships, and they had this low, tiny, weak technology with this massive, incredible, powerful technologies. They can have a sentient robot, but they have to rely on cranks to aim. I was so frustrated by that. I think I've accepted that at this point, because I really do think this is a better film than the original PG-13 version. It's not a good film, but it's an infinitely better film. Just like I said with the first review yesterday about the first chapter. Chapter 2 is infinitely better in the director's cut in every single way. So even though the technology and stuff is still the same, I think just exposure to it has just sort of numbed me to the ridiculousness of it. Even though I still kind of complain about it, I just accept it, And it all landed for me so much better in this director's cut, watch through of it, like so much better. But again, I'll put it like this. I don't need to watch the best versions of films all the time. Sometimes you want to watch a shitty film. Sometimes a B movie is good. Sometimes that's all you need. Not every movie has to be perfect, A++ film for me to watch it. And so, with horror films and especially with sci-fi, you get a lot of sort of like iffy films that you accept because you just happen to like the premise or the actors or just sci-fi in general. So, for example, I will watch Enemy Mine, which is a very low budget film, sci-fi film from back in the 80s, and I love it. It's not a great film. It's just a shitty 80s sci-fi film. I'd probably give it like a 4 out of 5 stars or 3.5 out of 5 stars. That's the quality of it. But I love that film, and I will watch it forever. So I don't need every film to be just like the best of its class for me to love it. Equally, I'll watch The Last Starfighter, which is a sci-fi fantasy film, very much sort of in line with I don't know. It's not really in line with anything. I don't know why I started out that way. But it's like modern day technology from the 80s. And then he goes off into space and it's like sci-fi technology. So that is another one of those 3 to 4 stars. And it's only that high of a rating because I have emotional investment in it from my childhood, nostalgia and stuff. So I'll gladly watch that movie, but it's not good. And I'll still love it. So me rating these films, I'm still going to, like, I probably will never rewatch this one, to be quite honest. And because I give it, a lower score, doesn't mean it should not be seen. It just means that it's just not my cup of tea and it's not my favorite thing out there. But I'll tell you what, if I'm going to have like a commentary track and me and a bunch of friends get together, hell yes, I'll watch it again. I'll watch it with them and we'll bust on it and we'll just sort of riff, just having fun. Because not every movie has to be a banger. Sometimes a B is okay, or a C is okay. So all that is to say that I'm okay with this film. And I'm actually okay with the second watching of this, Chapter 2, more okay with it than I am with Chapter 1 rewatch. Because Chapter 2 rewatch, the director's cut, has infinitely more content in it that explains everything, more of everything. More of the robot Jimmy, more of the backstory for characters, more of a heart with the characters' actual motivational reasons for doing what they do. Like, everything is infinitely better. And the action, say what you want about Zack Snyder's cinematography, he knows his action and he does a good job with it. And I thought the kills in this, the blood and the gore and everything really landed really, really well. All right, so let me get back to it. So we see those aliens that are like, spying on the people of Velt and reporting back to the Imperium. So they find out that the heroes are there and that they're probably not going to be ready or giving over what they're supposed to be giving over, which is all the wheat. And so we have this long sequence of that kid running in after having that conversation with the acting commander of the Imperial ship that's going to be here in 5 days. And he's like, look, they're going to be here in 5 days. We got to harvest that grain or they're going to kill everyone. And there's this cognitive dissonance because Korra's like, there's no way. The standard of operation is if your commander or your admiral dies, the entire ship has to go home. Like, that's how it works. Why are they coming here? He's like, I don't know. They're just coming here for wheat. Maybe they just really need bread. Like, whatever the reason. So now they have to come to terms with the fact that they still have to fight this group. It's not going to have Atticus Noble, according to them, according to their knowledge, but they still have to fight this ship, this dreadnought. And so not only do they have to harvest the grains, they also have to train the soldiers, the villagers on how to properly fight. And we get a bunch of like nice little sequences of the youth looking up to different adults that came to rescue them and stuff. And that's all fine and good. And we get that weird sit down scene in the first version of part 2. It was very ham-fisted. It felt very natural in this one. And it actually explained a whole lot more about each of the individual characters and their motivations. And I really appreciated it this watch through. And then you get some love scenes where Korra and her man get to have sex and like connect with each other. And there's a lot of intimacy in those scenes. It's not just like carnal sex. They're really connecting on an emotional level with each other, which is incredibly important for any relationship, which also explains the connection between the two of them that was wholly absent from the first film, the first PG-13 version of this film. And then we get a lot of sequences, and I already mentioned this in the previous review yesterday, about Jimmy, the robot, and his sort of exploration of what it means to be him. And then we get the weird wheat scenes. I don't know what the fuck is going on with this wheat shit, but sweet fucking hell, Zack Snyder is just harvesting wheat. It's not sexy. It's not exciting. It doesn't demand slow-mo anything. And yet he devotes 90% of all slow motion shots, which for Zack Snyder is a lot, to just the wheat scenes. It's so weird. I don't understand the choices that he's making here. So he does the wheat scene, and then they do the training sequence, and then we flash back to the dreadnought where Atticus Noble is finally coming to, and he's threatening all of the clerics, the red priests, like, you need to get me out of this and let me out. He's like, we need to test you and make sure you are dead, dude. We need to make sure that you are going to be cognizant and capable of leading before we let you out. We need to make sure you're healed. Because quite frankly, big robot demigod woman was not full power when she brought you back. And we need to make sure that you're full, which is 100% above the board logical. But the acting commander-in-chief comes in here. He sees all this stuff happening, and so he demands that they let Atticus Noble go. And so as soon as they disconnect him, he murders one of the priests. And it's like, now do you think I'm cognitive enough? And the dude can't answer because you just killed him, dumbass. You know what I don't remember seeing? In my first watch through, there's a scene where he was like masturbating with a alien attached to him. Like he was getting high from the alien connecting to his body. I don't remember that in this version at all. So I don't know if they took it out or I just blocked it out or what. But I thought it was a really weird, interesting scene originally. And to not have it in this felt very odd and off. But whatever. The whole movie's odd. So Atticus ends up retaking command, and he's ready to fuck Cora up. He wants to get her back to the Imperium core planet, and he will be a hero. He will be given a senatorial seat, and he will serve his king, Belarius, and everything will be grand in his worldview. It's going to take 5 days to get here because they have to kind of go slow because they just jumped and used up all their power, which gives conveniently everyone else time to work out, train the villagers how to fight and then also harvest all the grain and stuff. So ultimately we get some wonderful dance sequences. We get some wonderful vocalization and singing sequences, which I do actually really appreciate because it all goes into the concept of world building with Velt and their culture and everything. And I thought it was all good and fine. I mean, pretty cool actually. We get to see the youth, the leftover soldier from the Imperium that was working with the citizens of Velt and that young girl. They sort of get together, which is just endearing. There's nothing greater than young love. And I'm a romantic, so I remember being a young kid and falling in love. And I think it's beautiful. And I love seeing it vicariously or living it vicariously through other people because I'm an old curmudgeon now. I have a lot of love in my life. I don't have a lot of young, new love. I need to get a new puppy for that or something like that. So ultimately, they ended up finding Jimmy sees those weird alien creatures spying on the citizens and kills them as they're making one of their reports. And that's when they figure out, the Imperium figures out that they're not, they're going to fight. They're not actually cowed down as previously reported. And so they prepare a full-blown invasion. Jimmy actually helps open up and clean out one of the ships, so at least they have one ship to fight. And the whole editing of that final confrontation fight, which happens about halfway through the film, it starts and then ends with the full end of the film. So it's a very, very long combat sequence with a bunch of different stuff in it. Some, sort of World War I trench fighting sequences, which is all kind of interesting. But then you also get almost like Man of Steel combat vibes, and which I didn't mind. I thought it was really kind of cool. And I really like combat sequences that Zack Snyder puts out because they're elaborate and interesting to watch. And this is very elaborate and interesting to watch. It's a very long sequence. Everyone gets their highlighted scenes, and we get to see Jimmy finally unload and use those great antlers that he had on his head as he was sort of finding himself. I mean, I thought all the combat scenes in this were just top-notch quality combat scenes. The smoke coming out of the spaceships still bugs me, but at this point, I'm past it, You can't hold on to bullshit like that forever when you're watching something, when you're going to review it. So Cora ends up face to face with Atticus Noble, shocked that he's alive, and of course, scar giver is because she gave him a scar on his chest where she stabbed him through and thought she killed him at the end of the last film. And he's like, look, here's the deal. I'll let all these motherfuckers go. I only want you. You give yourself up, and I will save everyone. Now, I'd complained yesterday in my review of part 1 that there's no universe where she would accept this argument because she knows Atticus and she knows he's a fucking liar. But we had a lot of development with her character and her love and connection emotionally with these people. And I believed it. So I can accept a scene where she is like, if there's any chance of me, because they're facing insurmountable odds. The best case scenario is everyone dies. The worst case scenario is they're tortured and then they die. So that's where she's operating from. So she's like, if there's any chance of me saving any of these people, I have to take it. I have to take it. And so she tells everyone to stand down, but her man is just like, no, I'm not going to stand down. And so he like takes her pistol and alerts everyone, and which starts the whole battle, and they start blowing up ships. And then, of course, that's halfway through. So we got the whole second half of the movie, which is all just battle sequences. Ultimately, she hops in the ship and goes back up to the dreadnought in order to destroy it from the inside. And there's a lot of really great sequences in there where they're like targeting Velt, and she goes in there and murders the people targeting, and like their heads all blown off their skull, and the falling back body, which had its hand on the little crank to aim, like falls back with his body, which lifts up the gun a little bit and just enough at the distance in order to hit beyond the village on Velt rather than destroying the village itself. And, it saves everyone. Then the people up, we have Atticus Noble up in the command center, and he's like, all right, she's definitely on board. I need to go take care of her and get the hell out of here. And then you see the cannons going to aim right at the command center, and he's like, I'm popping smoke. So he ends up killing his second in command, who actually, has been helping him this entire time, but he needs to get out of there. He goes into the hangar bay, and that's where he confronts Cora, and has this really great combat sequence with her as the dreadnought itself is being blown up from the inside, and sort of there was this really great moment also I wanted to talk about real briefly, where Cora confronts that sort of robot demigod entity that they use to power the ship. And she has this vision of it sort of breaking free from the chains. And she's like, you need to find my sisters. You are going to liberate them. I accept that you're going to kill me for this moment because you have to, but liberate my sisters. It was something to that effect. Talk about world building and wanting to see that happen. I don't necessarily enjoy these films, but I would watch a third film and maybe a fourth film if it promises to go to Cora or Arthelius to go liberate these other dimensional entities. Like, that's interesting to me. I really want to see how that play out and what it's like. So anyway, she blows up that engine robot thing, which destroys the entire ship, and it plummets down to Velt and starts sort of destroying itself as it's crushing itself in the gravity of this moon. And she barely makes it off thanks to Gunnar, her man, who ends up being shot by Atticus and ends up dying on ground on Velt, which is a beautifully emotional scene. And to see her pain reflected in this moment on camera, I really, again, I don't necessarily like her as an actress. I definitely don't like her body type. I know that's shallow to say, but I don't. And I don't think she's particularly attractive or anything like that, which I think they were trying to make her that way. But I believed her pain, and I believed the sorrow and the loss. And that is all I need. I just need you as an actor or an actress to sell the scene. And she did. And I 100% appreciated her for that. So ultimately, they're having this, final moment of all of the escaped spaceships off of the dreadnought are sort of coming towards Velt, and that's where you see all the rebels coming out. And they come to the planet and they're like helping mop up all these people. You get to see some space combat stuff, not a whole bunch of it, starfighter type combat, not a lot of it, but enough to be like, okay, well, yeah, that happened. That's fun. That's a box checked off. And ultimately, the truth is that she's like, look, my name is not Cora. My name is Arthelius. I killed the princess. I'm culpable in all of that. I'm a monster. Don't celebrate me. Don't thank me. You should condemn me. And what is his name? Give me a second. I'm just looking up really quick. I should have moved these around just so they made more sense. Anyway, I'm not seeing it quickly. So one of the guys that she was with is like, I know who you are. Like, you don't need to convince me like of, the atrocities that you committed, because you didn't do what you thought you did. The princess is alive. She's been like taken away and sort of rescued somewhere else. And if you want to find her, we can go find her, which sort of leads you to the original ending of the original cut of, okay, well, now we need to go find the princess and make sure that she takes over as the new queen or the new leader of this whole Imperium, which I'm for. I would definitely watch it. Again, I don't think it's going to be a good film, but I would definitely watch it. And then we get to see the finale of Belisarius on the core world in the Imperium, getting his throne and all of his robes put together. And it's reported to him that Atticus Noble was killed, and he knows by who. It was his surrogate daughter, Arthaeus. And then he goes out to like see this overview of all his army sort of formed up, and the starfighters like flying by as if it's a jet show that you see at like National Guard and Army bases and Air Force bases and stuff like that. And it was a very grand sequence to end this version of the film on. And I gotta be honest, I liked this version of the film infinitely better than the original. Not only do you have all the gore and the blood and the sex and the nudity and extra scenes explaining it all, and the whole film is just better for all of the additions. And yes, it's longer, but it's worth it. And I'll tell you what, I gave the original film, the PG-13 version, like a 1 as a rating. I'm giving this a 3. It's not great. It's, not really everything resonates with me. And so I probably will never watch it again unless it's like a commentary track with some friends and just sort of, hanging out and having fun busting on the film. But it's a lot better than the original cut. And I accepted some of the things that I didn't accept the first watch through of the original cut in this director's edition. It could just be, exposure and, you get used to things and exposure and stuff. But I thought it was a better film. I really did. Still not good. I'm not sure it's worth your time, but it is a better film. All right, that's going to do it for this review of... what is this film called? Rebel Moon, Chapter 2, Curse of Forgiveness. Oh, really quick, let me talk about that Curse of Forgiveness title too. Because not only is it in reference to the citizens of the universe forgiving Korra for having murdered the princess, which she didn't in fact do, it's also that robot engine entity thing forgiving Korra for destroying it as a temporary necessity, and then calling on her to save all of her other sister robot entity beings. And so there's a lot of, like Korra Arthaeus needs to be forgiven for what she's done and what she's doing. And this entire film is about her being forgiven for all of that and finding a sense of forgiveness for the loss of life that is directly a result of her actions. On behalf of other people, but still. So yeah, I thought this was infinitely better. Let me know what you thought of this cut if you watched it. And if you haven't, why not? Because there's better shows out there? Yeah, that's true. If you find yourself with a Sunday afternoon, maybe pop this on and check it out for yourself if you haven't watched it already. And would you ever watch a third Rebel Moon film? Let me know in the comments below. As always, remember that evil spelled backwards is live, so get your asses out there and be evil.